The Shadow Pokemon you can get from Team Go Rocket Grunts has changed in Pokemon Go. Today we're going through the top 25 Shadow Pokemon to look out for and remove frustration from right now in Pokemon Go. Let's get into it. In the number 25 slot, we're going to start with Shadow Ducklett. Shadow Ducklett is available from the Flying Grunt that says Battle My Flying type Pokemon. Shadow Ducklett in the Little Cup, when that comes back around, is a super strong Pokemon you're going to want to have on your roster, as it is one of the highest ranking Pokemon in that cup. In the number 24 slot, we have Shadow Alolan Rattata and Shadow Alolan Raticate. This Shadow Pokemon is available from the Dark Run with the text, where there is light, there is also shadow. Both the Shadow and the purified version of Alolan Raticate in the Kanto Cup is one of the best Pokemon in that meta. Although we don't have the Kanto Cup right now, it's great to grab this Pokemon and have one ready for when that cup comes back, because that Pokemon can destroy Hypnos in that league. In the number 23 slot, we're going to have Shadow Starly. This Pokemon is available from the Flying Grunt with the text Battle Against My Flying type Pokemon. Shadow Starly evolves into Shadow Staraptor, which is going to be one of the best flying type raid attackers in the game, and you probably played the community, so you have a bunch of candies for it. Also, Shadow Staraptor is the #1 closer in the Ultra League, meaning when shields are down, this is the best Pokemon to have on your team. All in all, an amazing Pokemon to hunt. Next up, we're going to have Shadow Mawile, which is actually available from Arlo right now. Catching a Shadow Mawile is great because Shadow Mawile is a great Pokemon for the Halloween Cup. Although you won't have the opportunity to use it until next year because the Halloween Cup only comes around in October. Shadow Mawile is deadly in that cup, a huge core breaker. I've ran it myself and had so much success, so grab yourself some Shadow Mawiles from Arlo. In the number 21 slot, we have Shadow Alolan Sandshrew. This Pokemon is available from the Ice Grunt, saying you're going to be frozen in your tracks. That evolves into Shadow Alolan Sandslash, which again is a great Pokemon for the Kanto Cup. I'm hoping we get the return of the Kanto Cup soon, because this Pokemon, especially with Shadow Claw, is a super strong Pokemon you need to watch out for in that meta. In the number 20 slot, we have Shadow Gollet. Shadow Gollet is available from the Ghost Grunt, saying ki. Shadow Golett evolves into Shadow Golurk, which is actually the #1 damage per second ground type raid attacker in the game. Also, Shadow Golurk actually does have some play in the Halloween Cup, and I think even the Willpower Cup, as there are so many poison types in that meta, and that Mud Slap just chunks. In the number 19 slot, we have Shadow Bellsprout, which is available from a Giovanni Decoy Grunt. Yes, equip your Black Archer Radar and you can find these Giovanni Decoy Grunts that will get you encounters with Shadow Bellsprouts every time. Shadow Victory Bell is a great Pokemon for the Great League with that heavy Razor Leaf damage, so make sure you grab yourself a good IV one from the Decoy Grunts. Next up, we have Shadow Chikorita, available from the Grass Grunt, saying don't tangle with us. Shadow Meganium is going to be a great Pokemon for the Great League and the Ultra League. Although Venusaur is probably a better grass type for those metas, you never know, Shadow Meganium might be a better pick depending on your team build. We then have Shadow Weedle and Shadow Beedrill, both encounterable from the Bug type Grunt, which says go my super bug Pokemon. Shadow Beedrill itself is going to be a great League Pokemon. That poison jab damage does so much, as well as the drill run coverage for the steel types. Highly recommend getting yourself a good IV one. I've ran it, it's actually pretty good. Next up, we have Shadow Shinx, available from the electric type Grunt that says get ready to be shocked. Shadow Luxray is going to be a great Pokemon for the Great League, but on top of that, Shadow Luxray is one of the best electric type raid attackers in the game. Although there are better electric type raid attackers, and it might not be the best investment into this Shadow, if you get a good IV one, might as well power it up because it is still very strong. We then have Shadow Snubull, available from the Fairy type Grunt, saying check out my cute Pokemon. Shadow Granbull is going to be a great League Charmer, one of the best actually, as well as a good Fairy type raid attacker in the game. Fairies are actually very useful to take down Sierra's team, I believe, so Shadow Granbull could be very useful to counter Sierra. We then have Shadow Zubat, which is going to be available from the Poison type Grunt that says coiled and ready to strike. Shadow Zubat evolves into Shadow Golbat, and Shadow Golbat is a great League Pokemon. It does better in limited metas like the Halloween Cup, but you can still run it in the open league. On top of that, you can evolve it all the way up into Shadow Crobat, which Shadow Crobat is going to be a good Ultra League Pokemon. It can definitely be a huge core breaker for all the fighting and fairy types running around right now. We then have Shadow Nidorina, available from the Poison Grunt again that says coiled and ready to strike. This evolves of course into Shadow Nidoqueen, and Shadow Nidoqueen, if you don't know, is one of the best Great League and Ultra League Pokemon, specifically probably the best poison type. This thing just crushes any sort of fairy types in the meta, a great Pokemon to have. We then have Shadow Snover, available from the Ice Grunt that says you're going to be frozen in your tracks. Now Shadow Abomasnow is going to be a great League and Ultra League Pokemon. Although I feel like it has less play now that Talonflame is a thing and fire types are a little more popular, it is still a good Pokemon to have and can be a really big core breaker for things like Swampert and Abomasnow. Next up, Shadow Skunky, which is going to be available from the Dark type Grunt, saying wherever there's light, there is also shadow. Shadow Skunky evolves into Shadow Skunktank, in which Shadow Skunktank is a great League and Ultra League Pokemon, and even does well in limited metas like the Willpower Cup we saw, the the Halloween Cup, or any cups where poison darks are allowed. Honestly, dark poison types are always going to be good in PvP, and this is no exception. On the topic of dark poisons, we then have Shadow Skorupi. Shadow Skorupi is going to be available from the bug grunt saying go my super bug Pokemon. Of course, Shadow Drapion, just like Shadow Skuntank, is a good Great League and Ultra League Pokemon, and specifically one of the best save swaps. This Pokemon can put out so much damage, and especially if you have an XL one for the Ultra League, not a Pokemon you want to sleep on. We then have Shadow Electabuzz, available from the electric type grunt that says get ready to be shocked. Shadow Electivire is the number 3 electric type raid attacker in the game right now. I believe Xurkitree and Shadow Raikou are the only better ones, and this thing can output an insane amount of electric type damage in raids. On top of that, it's going to be a good Ultra League closer Pokemon similar to the Shadow Staraptor we talked about. As once shields are down, Shadow Electivire can one-shot almost anything in the meta. We're coming down to the end of it with Shadow Ralts, available from the Fairy type grunt that says check out my cute Pokemon, and also from the Psychic type grunt that says are you scared of the Psychics that use unseen powers. Shadow Ralts, of course, can first of all evolve into Shadow Gardevoir. Shadow Gardevoir is the number 1 Fairy type raid attacker in the game right now. Also, Shadow Ralts can go into Shadow Gollet. Shadow Gollet in the Ultra League and even in the Great League is a good Pokemon. We saw it destroy recently in the Willpower Cup running Charm, but remember, you need a male Ralts to evolve it into the Gollet. We then have Shadow Magikarp, which is available from the male Water Grunt that says these waters are treacherous. Shadow Magikarp, of course, evolves into Shadow Gyarados, and Shadow Gyarados is going to be a great Ultra League and Master League Pokemon. I feel like right now as well, Shadow Gyarados is very good in the meta, as there's just it can core break a lot of teams. Now we have a new Shadow in the next slot, and that's going to be Shadow Onix. Shadow Onix is available from the Let's Rock and Roll grunt, and of course evolves into Shadow Steelix. Shadow Steelix is an amazing Pokemon for the Great League, but even better for the Ultra League. I believe it's one of the highest ranking Pokemon now for the Ultra. Shadow Steelix with that Dragon Tail damage is just going to chunk, and KO almost anything in that meta. It's not a Pokemon you want to sleep on. Definitely grab yourself a Shadow Steelix for the Great League and the Ultra League if you can. Okay, in the top 5 now, Shadow Sableye making its appearance. Shadow Sableye is available from Sierra. I'm still hunting the shiny Shadow. Of course, Shadow Sableye, if you purify it, is one of the best Pokemon for the Great League. The reason you want to purify it is you want to have that move Return on it, because that allows it to hit big neutral damage on any Pokemon that can counter it. However, you can also even just keep the Shadow Sableye as a Shadow and run it in the Great League. It's not going to do as well as the purified one, but it is still very, very strong. In the number 4 slot, we have Shadow Machop. Shadow Machop is available from Cliff right now. Now, Shadow Machop, of course, evolves into Shadow Machamp, which we've known for the longest time is a very useful Pokemon. Shadow Machamp is going to see play in the Great League, in the Ultra League, and even in the Master League, although not as much now. On top of that, Shadow Machamp is also a good fighting type raid attacker. It's actually number 2 because Shadow Terrakion is better than it now, but it's still very, very strong and definitely worth grinding some cliffs to try to get yourself some good Shadow Machamps. In the number 3 slot, we're going to have Shadow Swinub. Shadow Swinub is available from the Ice Grunt that says you're going to be frozen in your tracks, and of course evolves into Shadow Mamoswine. We've known for the longest time Shadow Mamoswine is one of the best ice type raid attackers in the game, and also one of the best ground type raid attackers. With the introduction of Shadow Golett, it is now number 2 damage per second for a ground type, but still very, very strong. In the number 2 slot, we're going to have Shadow Snorlax. Shadow Snorlax is available from the Elite Grunt, I like to call it. The text they say is either don't bother, I've already won, get ready to be defeated, or winning is for winners. It's going to be guaranteed Shadow Snorlax encounter, and Shadow Snorlax is going to be great for the Ultra League and the Master League. I'm still looking for a good IV Shadow Snorlax myself to run in the Master League. And that brings us to the number 1 slot, the best Shadow Pokemon to hunt during this rotation of Team Go Rocket. Note they'll be available for like the next 3 months, all these Pokemon. And that's going to be Shadow Dratini. I know you probably guessed it. The Dragon Grunt Roar, how does that sound? Has a chance at Shadow Dratini, although it also has a chance at Shadow Alolan Executor. Shadow Dratini evolves into Shadow Dragonite, which in my opinion is one of the best overall Pokemon in the game right now. Shadow Dragonite has played in the Great League, in the Ultra League, in the Master League, and also one of the best Dragon type raid attackers in the game behind Shadow Salamander. Honestly, you can never go wrong with looking for Shadow Dratinis or doing a Dragon Grunt because this Pokemon has so much use all around. Now, I do want to shout out some special Pokemon that are still worth hunting. Number 1 is going to be 1000 Stardust Purify Pokemon. The following Pokemon are available from grunts right now, and if you get them, they only cost 1000 Stardust to purify. So if you get a bad IV one or one you're not going to use, definitely purify to work on your Purify Metal or those level 45 tasks if you're on level 45 working on those Team Rocket tasks. These Pokemon include Shadow Weedle, Shadow Rattata, Shadow Zubat, Shadow Magikarp, Shadow Whismur, Shadow Wilmer, Shadow Bidoof, Shadow Starly, and Shadow Purloin. Any bad IVs of these Pokemon you get, just purify them, as they're the cheapest Stardust Purify. Number 2 is going to be purifying for Mega Forms. If you get a 13-13-13 IV set or higher, if you don't know when you purify Pokemon, all their IVs go up 2 points, which means that will be a guaranteed hundo. The following Pokemon are probably worth purifying if you get one that is in that IV range for the hundo, because as a high IV Shadow, they just have no use. Shadow Mareep for the Mega Ampharos, Shadow Numel for Mega Camerupt, Shadow Onix for Mega Steelix, Shadow Weedle for Mega Beedrill, and Shadow Snover for Mega Abomasnow. Note, however, if you do get to 100% IV Shadow of any of these Pokemon, I probably wouldn't purify just because it's super, super rare like that. But if you get anything else, like you're not going to be using a 98 Shadow Ampharos for anything. That is pretty much the video though, guys. Let me know if this video helped you out and what Shadow Pokemon you're going after the most. I'm gonna be grinding Sierra the most because I just want to get as many Shadow Stabilize as I can, but let me know in the comment section below. We're gonna see you all in the next one, guys. Follow for tips, everybody. Peace.